All right. So, thank you all for joining me, Sylvan Finger, and
David
David
Crockett.
David Crockett, about the basics in financials. So, um, just a couple of things. Was there anything anyone was hoping to particularly learn tonight? Oh, which is just fine. Uh, Of course, as we go along, you'll probably have some questions along the way, and we'll try to make sure we have plenty of time for our questions and answers at the end. If we are starting to change topic, and as the questions seem to go fairly well, and we both said we're both flexible as we go along, feel free to ask along the way, but I will try to make sure that, especially at the end, we'll have a Q&A. Um, so, so David, who are you and what do you do?
Well, what I do is I help families and small business with their finances, and I've been doing this for about 20 years right now,
Mhm.
and most of that time was on a part-time basis, if you can believe it.
Mm.
Okay, because I have a whole background in engineering and manufacturing operations and the whole thing. And how I got started and how I, started to do this business part time. Now I'm full time.
Okay.
Okay. So, but I decided that I needed to know more about, my investments as far as in the 401k,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing, because, when you do enroll in a 401k, the company is not obligated to help you.
Right.
They're not
Right.
fiduciaries, so they just say you read the material and you check the right boxes.
Mm.
So I said that's not acceptable,
Right.
so I want to know what's going on. And then I decided that, hey, you know what? This is very actually kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
You get to help people, with their 401ks and their finances and protecting their income and the whole thing. So I said, okay, I'm going to get involved in this.
Right.
And everybody in Primerica is was founded in 1977, so it's not a startup by any stretch.
Mm.
Okay, we operate in the United States, Canada,
Mm.
Puerto Rico, Guam. We did have a division in Spain about maybe 20 years ago, but just due to the regulatory environment and the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing, you have to um, conform to everything, and that just didn't work out. So, but we're all over the place. We don't advertise. We are all word of mouth, because that's we feel that's the best way to
Mm.
promote ourselves.
Definitely.
There's no expenses in the advertising. You see some of the big, national like car insurance. They're on the tube all the time. Trying to advertise, and
Right.
that just you're paying for that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those things
Advertising's quite
that,
expensive.
yeah. And quite frankly, you get the best response from people that know and trust you,
Mm.
and word of mouth and the whole thing. So that's why it works so well.
Mm.
Um, so I decided about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, that I would go full time. I was done, doing manufacturing, and
Right.
I basically retired.
All
Yeah.
right. This is
And then I
your retirement
decided,
job,
yeah, this
your
is
second
this is
career.
this is kind of fun. It's kind of nice to have the option to work.
Right.
Okay. And that's really like a theme in here, is when you want to retire. Okay. Your retirement is an amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily an age. We would all like to retire at a certain age, but you've got to have the money to back it up. Okay,
Right.
so that's what we're talking about. And you want to have the option, because you just don't want to run out of money, and that'll come up in this presentation also.
All right. So, in terms of finances, where should anyone start? or I said, I want to get organized. Where should anyone start?
Well, I just, if you want to know specifically, one thing is a budget, which we call a spending plan. Okay, because everybody likes to spend money, nobody likes to budget money, right? Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So we call it a spending plan, and the way to start to do that is that we have budget forms or spending plan forms that you can audit or track what you've been spending for a month or two, because a lot of times people just aren't aware of where all the money goes, and we highly recommend that you get a tablet, you know and you just start listing everything you buy, even if it's a drive-through at one of the Starbucks or the Dutch Brothers or something like that.
Right.
As you write it down, $4.50,
Right.
and then just try to be diligent about doing that.
Right. Right. Definitely. Um, so tracking your expenses, I imagine a lot of times that's a lot more difficult than tracking your income. A lot of times your income comes from just a few sources, maybe if you're employed, a couple checks a month, or or
you get a paycheck
Right.
normally is what most people, and if you have a side gig, maybe you
Right.
do Uber or something,
Right.
that's another check that comes in,
Right.
and you just, it's pretty easy to do. It's challenging to do the expenses because sometimes you don't have your sheet with you, you run into Walgreens and then it's all over.
All right.
Yeah.
You ever invested on stocks?
Yes. Not directly. We do it through mutual funds, which is kind of the investment of choice for mainstream America, which is who I am. I'm not rich, but I know what's going on with my own money, and we want to make sure that everybody has that same confidence. But yes.
Oh. Yeah, I try to invest in stocks too.
Yeah, we do it through mutual funds, which is a diversified approach. It usually consists of about 150 to 200 companies as a mutual fund.
Wow.
Okay. I wasn't going to go over that. I mean, I could, very easily go over that part of it since you're interested in
Right.
it.
No, definitely.
But it's, individual stocks, it is not really something that I want to deal with, because of the, I'm not an investment professional. I'm a financial guy who knows who the investment professionals are. Okay, I talk to them every week. Okay, but I don't spend the hours and hours every day trying to figure out what's going to go up and what's going down.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine you get a lot of term stocks is more of a long-term financial
Definitely.
goal. I know that's one thing you want to talk about was goals. Maybe that'd be a good time now.
Okay.
What what goals did you have in mind? I forgot what those were. I probably should have printed that list out too.
Well, maybe I could just go through a few slides here,
Yeah.
and then we'll see where it leads us here.
Sure.
Because it is kind of generic. I mean, we believe that financial education should be free. It should be part of the curriculum. It should be part of, every community organization, churches, whatever.
Right.
And it's just not. Nobody had a money 101 course in high school.
Right.
Okay. In college, you don't have it either. You have an economics class, but that's just supply and demand and all the textbook stuff. It means nothing,
Right.
to family finances. So, you want to know, how you can save for the future, because you have so much debt. How much do I need to get started? Okay, how much money do I need to retire?
Mm,
You know, because if I ask everybody, how much money do you need to retire? We'll get numbers all over the place.
right.
You'll get 100,000, you'll get 1 million, you'll get 5 million, you know, and there's quite a difference between those.
I
So
imagine it depends what kind of life you want to live afterwards.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, it depends on your lifestyle. That's why everything we do is customized and confidential, you know, for each family. You know, we don't assume anything. You know, some people want to, you know, have a big travel budget so they can go see the grandkids, you know, every week, take them
Right.
to Disneyland. And then some of them are more of homebodies. You know, they want to stay around. You know, they
Right.
go on car trips or they go on bus trips to Utah. You know, the stuff like that, you know, low dollar stuff. So,
Right.
you know, you find out what people, you know, are all about. And
Right. And you help
it's,
them get there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this common thing, you know, it doesn't come with an instruction manual. You know, money is what it is. You know,
Right.
everything in life comes with an instruction manual except the paycheck. Okay. And, you know, why do people have so many financial challenges? Well, I'm kind of, you know, this is a conspiracy theory, but I think it's the financial institutions. You know, they don't want us to know about money.
Right.
Okay.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Which kind of makes sense in ways
Yeah.
if they know how to make the money, they want to keep it that way,
They
right?
want to keep the money. They want to know how to make it grow.
Right.
You know, the banks are just fine with charging you fees for this, charging
Right.
you fees for that, you know, and investing your bank account money, you know, and reaping the rewards while they give you like a small little,
Right.
you know, 0.5% or whatever. But
Right.
people don't get a financial education. You know, they don't have a financial plan, at least anything written. And you know, they don't have somebody to help coach them. You know, that's something that I didn't have when I wanted to know more.
Hmm.
And that's how I kind of found, actually Primerica kind of found me at the right time.
Hmm.
You know, I was, you know, in the process of finding another job, and you know, some guy you know, asked me, do I keep my options open? And I
Right.
said, I sure do. But I guarantee you, if I was at a job and you know, just working, I would have said, no, not really. I'm happy where I'm at. You
Right.
know, so the timing was all there for me
Hmm.
too, and lucky me. But the result, you know, results in serious challenges for Main Street families. Okay, here's some stats. 60% of Americans have less than $50,000 towards retirement, have saved less than 50,000, and about a third of those have less than 10,000. Okay, so that's a problem. You know, if you're going to rely on Social Security, and if you're lucky enough to have a pension, if you work for a public sector,
Mhm.
you know, a school or police, fire, you know, they still have, or even hospitals, they have pensions still. But pensions are very fast going away,
Hmm.
you know, so you're really looking at two sources of income, your Social Security and your own personal finances, your own personal savings. Yeah. Nearly half of Americans have no life insurance at all. Life insurance is a very important part of a financial plan, especially for younger families, you know, that have kids.
Mhm.
You know, you have one or two breadwinners.
Right.
If one of those breadwinners were to pass away, the
Right.
family's in deep, deep trouble.
Right.
Okay, because not only are they working with half or less of the income, but now they have childcare issues that they have to pay for, and it just goes, you know, downhill fast.
Right.
You know, so it's super important to consider the right kind of life insurance.
Do you know how much we can get life insurance. Or
Well, it depends on the age, the health, how much you want for what term and the whole thing. Generally speaking, the purpose of life insurance is to replace income.
Right.
Okay. And I would say, as far as what we do, we don't encourage, people to get life insurance just to create a inheritance, for the kids or whoever, or the spouse or whatever. Because as you get older, life insurance becomes more expensive. And so there's a point in time when you have to say, I don't need life insurance. What I do need to do is save this and invest it.
Right.
Yeah, you need to turn it. We'll go through.
Right. I just kind of want to recap.
Yeah.
Before we
Yeah,
we
go
go to the
ahead.
next one. So I know for me, understanding life insurance took a while to kind of understand, but I mean, you mentioned it all, but I guess to summarize it a little bit more is so that if something were to happen to you, most likely death, a lot of times there's, what is that something? If it's disability, well, that's a different insurance
Different
a lot of
story.
times. So if for some reason you die, whatever reason, say like cancer, cancer is a big one that people get hit with, and next thing they go to the doctor. Next thing you know, they got stage 4 cancer, and the doctor's like, "There's nothing we can do. You got 6 months to live." And it's like, well, I didn't know what to do. And well, if you had life insurance already that you've been in some ways paying into, of course you can't take it out if you don't die. But you've been paying into for a long period of time. Well, even though that's terrible news, you're actually setting your family up for success by having life insurance, knowing that the family's not going, "Oh my, who's going to start paying the bills? Where's the income coming from?" Well, the life insurance plan will replace that. We'll
Right.
bring in the income. It's not 100% usually, but because obviously you have one less mouth to feed, but still the family that was depending on you. So it's really for your dependents, for the people who are depending on you to keep on going in their life.
Yeah, expenses don't go down if one of the breadwinners were to pass away. The family is still the family. They still have a car, they still have a house, or they have an apartment that they're renting.
Right.
So a lot of that is fixed costs. The variables are really kind of small
Right.
in the scheme of things.
Right.
Now, 61% of Americans with credit card debt, 23%, a fourth of them go into debt deeper each month. Okay, that's the takeaway from this one right here. I don't know, my cursor is not there. That's okay. So you've got, probably about 25% of people that are going further in debt. Okay, and that's not a formula for success. So, that's where the budget comes in, and that's where the financial needs analysis, which we do for families and small business, comes in, and we'll get to that. You have any other questions you want to lead into?
Let's see here. I think with these things is what I'm going to do is leave them for the end.
Okay.
So you go ahead and continue with your presentation. I know you just talked about debt. Maybe I don't know if you're going to talk about the difficulty of getting out of debt, because I know my experience with debt. I know some banks love handing out credit cards, whatever.
Yeah.
Anything. Grocery stores like handing out credit cards. Places at the mall, and
They all do.
you get junk mail of credit cards from banks you didn't even know existed, and they love giving them out. And sometimes they're like, just put $1,000 expense on there and don't worry about it. But the problem is, if you didn't have that $1,000, or you couldn't save up for that $1,000 over 12 months, if that was an issue before, well, you're going to have an issue paying off that $1,000, um, um, that $1,000 you put on that credit card, and banks know it, but people oftentimes don't. They're like,
Yeah.
$1,000, my paycheck's
big
three
deal.
times that, 5 times that, I should be able to pay that off, right? Well, unless you're really not good with your expenses and you happen to have, most of it is, dispendable income, which most people don't have, as you're mentioning. Almost a quarter of people are having a hard time getting out of debt, if not
They're just
getting
they're just
deeper.
piling on.
Right. They're
So,
just saying, well, I'll just add more and
we got
keep
4
going.
people here. Which one is it?
right.
It's like, oh,
Right. So no, it's interesting. There is such a thing as good debt, but unless you're really
yeah,
unless you're a really business person and understand how you can get a turnaround from what you're buying to help you make more money. I mean, that's a whole nother concept.
it's
But
all cash flow, and that's a
Right.
little bit out of our
correct.
league here. We're generally, when we talk about family finances, you get money, you live your life, and you raise your family.
Right.
It's not any more complicated than that. For a family, the only good debt really is if you're buying a house,
Right.
and it's a modest, it's not overdone. You got a family of 4 and you've got 5 bedrooms. Well,
Right.
no, let's not do that.
Right. And on cars, I think is another one that
Yeah.
people are on the fence. It depends who you ask for. Of course, with anything, you want to spend as little as you can, but if it's not going to get you where you need to get to, well, then
Yeah.
a studio apartment for a family of 5 is probably not going to work.
No, that's the other extreme,
Right.
but as far as a car, a car is like a distant second,
Right.
there's, if you can get away with not, doing a loan on a car,
Right.
that's where you want to be. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter, anything. It just matters, that, does it fit in your finances? And when we work with families, that definitely comes up.
Right.
I've had to say, are you sure you need that Suburban?
Right.
That's a big truck car thing.
Right. It'd be
and
nice,
it's very nice to have it, but it's got $700 payments, per
Right.
month and stuff like that.
Is that really the best use of your money?
Yeah.
You may look good in it, but
Yeah.
is it really going to help you bring more money in? Yeah.
Now, when and that's related to that is your basic income and emergencies and stuff like that. The 57 or more than half people will find it difficult to deal with $1,000 emergency.
Wow.
Say your washing machine goes down and you have to buy a new one. You want to keep from breaking out the credit card because that's what most people do. It's,
Right.
well, I have to buy a washer.
Right. You got to get my clothes clean one
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. I can't go to the laundromat, which is a fine, that's okay. If that's, your lifestyle, then that's fine.
Right.
But for crying out loud, don't go to the credit card. You want to have some emergency funds, and we'll get to a slide with that real quick here. A lot of times, you think, well, I'm destined to work my job, and pay credit cards. That's not always true. People that are rich have just as many problems as people that don't have a high paying job. They just spend more money.
All right.
And instead of having $5,000 in credit card debt, they have 150. I've seen it day in and day out.
Wow. It's almost like they think they deserve to spend more for whatever reason because they got a promotion.
Yeah.
But they're not looking at their budget and seeing because what I learned what a budget does. I don't know when you plan to get to that, but what a budget does, I learned is here's another family coming in, which is fine. But what a budget does is they'll, in many ways, gives you, even though you're the one that makes it, you kind of give yourself permission of what you can spend and
Right.
where money needs to go. And so,
Uh-huh.
It lets you know if you have that $700 for that fancy car you want, or, are you able to put that money, like I said, would that money be better spent somewhere else, or you need to bring it down so that you don't have more money coming out? Because again, if you can't make the money in 1 month or 12 months, you're not going to make it in the next 3 months.
Yeah, you
Because
don't
you're
want
just
to
doing the same
accumulate
thing.
debt. You don't want to accumulate debt.
Correct.
And keep it, piling it on. So, um, most people don't plan to fail. They just aren't planning. Okay. We just tend to get our check. Okay, I'm gonna just start spending it now. And when it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
That's a heck of a way to go. But the problem really is with this little wheel here, it's kind of small, but it has different entities that want your money. Okay, the 401k, you've decided you want to contribute, so you're putting money into that. Then you've got bank accounts. You want to save money, so you give it to the bank.
Mm-hmm.
You have life insurance, you have mortgage or a rent. You've got to spend money on rent. None of these places care what the other ones are doing. Okay, they just want their share.
Right.
Okay. So, mutual funds, installment loans, do you name it? They don't care that you have, an emergency that you have to buy a new washer. They just say, give us our part.
Right.
Okay. So you end up putting a priority. Everybody else has the priority for your money. Okay. And one of our concepts is pay yourself first, and we'll get into that. What we do is we work with a financial needs analysis, and this is an analysis program which is quite extensive. And we start off very simple first, income, retirement, and the protection of your income, which is life insurance. And then we start going into things like, college educations, emergency funds, all this other stuff, that puts a good financial plan together. Okay. So this really ends up kind of being a financial GPS. It allows you to break it out every once in a while, look at it, and see how you're doing.
Right.
And no plan is immune to changes. You can always change it. There's not written in concrete or anything. It's written in the computer, which is easily changed. Okay, I think we now this is where we talk about, know your financial independence number. And right now, if you're struggling with just making enough money and getting out of debt, the basic problems, this may seem like, well, gosh, I don't want to worry about that right now.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what we're talking about is figuring out, if you want to retire when you're 65 or 67, what do you need to have in order to take that 30-year retirement vacation? Basically you've decided you don't want to work anymore.
Right.
You want a vacation. Okay. So when we talk about that, how do you get to that? So in this case, you have somebody wants to retire in 30 years. That means they're probably around 35 or so. They want to retire in 30 years. 30 years from now, and the average inflation has been 2.5% to 3%. We're through the roof right now.
Right. So
But it'll all
another
kind of
issue.
work itself out, over.
I'm hearing it's getting better.
Yeah, it is getting better. Now, and you want to retire at $30,000 a year, which is a very modest, dignified retirement.
Mhm.
Okay, it's nothing, that's over the top. Okay, so $30,000 a year, and that may or may not include Social Security. Okay, in 30 years, 3% inflation, you're going to need to have $73,000 to spend like 30,000 does today. Okay. So
Crazy to think about, isn't it?
think about that. 30 years from now, you're going to need like 1.5 times more, to buy stuff. Like, if you just take a $30 small basket of groceries, 30 years from now, that small basket of groceries is going to cost $73.
Right.
It's like, what? How do I do that? So, that's what we're dealing with. That's why we say, let's look at the end result and then try to work our way back. Okay,
Right.
so that's the beginnings of a real plan.
Okay.
Okay. But along the way, we're going to be dealing with debt. We're going to be dealing with income. How do you get a second stream of income?
Right.
All that kind of stuff.
Right.
So the financial independence number in this particular example is about $1 million. Okay. And, I know
Wow.
everybody's like going, well, yeah, that counts me out. I don't think so. 30 years is a long time. And if
Right.
you're intentional, even if you're half as good as that, you're going to have 500,000.
Hmm.
Okay. So just keep that in mind. Don't discount it right now.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like a lot of money, and it is. It is.
Right.
But you've got 30 years.
And so I think I don't know if you mentioned, but I saw on your slide, if you're able to go back. Uh, so in order to get that number, you'd have to save about $585 per month.
Yes, $585 per month for 30 years. And, the stock market through mutual funds is averaged around 10.5% in the S&P 500. And,
That's the interest.
yeah, that's the rate of return.
I know we haven't talked
interest.
about compound interest.
Yeah, we're getting
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But overall, the bigger the number, the better. But
Yeah.
it's compound interest again, it can be, in this case, it works in your benefit.
Yes.
Right, for debt and
For that.
credit cards, it works against you.
Yes, yeah, you actually, that we're getting to that. So,
Yeah.
So these are the three accounts that we recommend that we get started with. The first one is an emergency fund. Okay, that's cash that you have ready to go in case you do have a problem, say with a washing machine or a car problem or expense for medical or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you need to be able to pull out cash, pay for it, and not resort to a credit card.
Right.
Okay. The second account is like a short-term savings. Now, this is something that would actually be invested in kind of a very conservative investment. And we haven't talked about investments, but it would be something that is not cash, but it's actually an investment. Okay. And this would be for longer term items, maybe 3 to 5 years out. The emergency fund is for like anything right now to like 1 or 2 years. Short-term savings is 3 to 5, maybe 7 years out. That would be maybe saving for your next car.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, while you run this one
Right.
into the ground. It might be to pay for a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
You've got daughters, you want to pay for weddings, they're going to get there at someday,
Right.
right? So you're going to do that, or anything else like that. Maybe a major medical expense. Maybe you got laid off and you don't expect to be able to get a job and for another 3 or 4 months. Sometimes that's the case. So that's it. And the last one is your wealth building account. This is the one you don't touch. This is the one that when you put your money in, you don't want to be able to have the ability to take it out just on a whim. Okay. Because this will be in the global economy, and the global economy can go up and can go down, it can go up and down. So what you want to do is have this money working for you long term, over 10 years. Okay, so if you're within 10 years of retirement, then you want to start making some other investments in there, and that's where I come in. I can, show you how to do all that. Okay. And yeah,
Like on long term stay investment. We can invest like on a house.
it would generally be in like a mutual fund, like the stock market, things like that. If you wanted to invest in a house, and either have a rental or just, yeah, then that's more than acceptable. I mean, that's a good way to go. If you're handy and you can keep your expenses down, fix it up, and then, that might be something that would be, appropriate for you. It doesn't have to be, investments in the stock market. That's my expertise. I can't advise you on buying a house and renting it out. I don't do that.
All right.
Like
But I know plenty of people make money, so.
uh, the stocks, probably it might be low term.
Yeah, long-term stocks are long-term. And again, the way that we would invest, and again, this is kind of at the upper end of the financial plan. I know we need to throttle it back a little bit, but the mutual funds is a type of investment that invests in many different stocks. Okay, so that you have your money spread out and you don't feel the ups and downs of a specific industry.
Right.
It would be like, I invested in the cruise ship industry in December of 2019, right?
Right.
Now, since COVID came and shut all the ships down, how do you think I did in 2020? I mean, I didn't, but I'm just an example.
Right.
Okay.
Everything kind of fell apart.
It fell apart.
Money
All
would
the ships
disappear.
were docked for 2 years. And what do? You got this big old ship. You're used to filling it up with 3,000 people that are paying.
Right.
And now nobody wants to be near you because, we're all running around with masks on and bumping.
Right.
Yeah.
But with my experience with stocks, it's there's you got all these savings approaches, and the interesting thing with stocks is it's more of a risk. I think stocks are often glamorized, where you got to just pick the kind of like gambling. You got to pick the
It's not gambling.
right one,
Yeah. I know.
and then if you just pick the right investment company, then you'll be rich overnight. But most stocks, from what I understand, do not work that way.
No.
Maybe some do. There are some cases, and so there are some success stories. But truth be told, unless you're really inside and know what is going on with that business, no one really has a clue how that business is doing. I mean, sure, that business might have a reputation that you can kind of to see how it's doing and if it's going somewhere or not. But to say make $1 million overnight because you picked the right stock is probably not going to happen. If anything, right?
Yes, it's exactly
Right.
like gambling.
And so
That's not what the stock market is in its core.
correct. And so if you have it spread out, or let me back up. So, but kind of like gambling, if you put all your money, everything you have on one card play, and you have no idea how it's going to come out, well, then and there's most likely more of a chance you're going to lose than actually get something out of it. Well, then you just lost everything. But if you have you're saying 200 organizations that you're investing in. Well, if say 5 of them fail, well, who cares? You
Then-
still have 195
That are doing okay.
are doing okay.
Yeah.
And in fact, they might be doing better than those than that 5 that did fail.
Yeah,
I think you're tracking with what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
usually, people are investing in what works. And so if you have a whole bunch of people, so mutual funds help you do smart investing where stocks, like you said, that's kind of a higher level. You really have to kind of know what's going on. I don't know, especially the news doesn't really help, I don't think. So well,
No,
they
but
talk about the stock market numbers and say how you doing, and sometimes you see a little red and you kind of wonder if you should sell, and it's like, well, it's I hardly lose. Yes, I
that's a
lost a
whole
little bit that
nother
day,
subject in
but
itself, you know.
overall, the longer. But then the next day it's green, but you don't have no idea the
Well,
night before if it's
if
going to be green or red
yeah,
by the end of the
and
day.
if you're
You just
chasing
don't
it,
know.
you're losing.
Right. If you're
Okay, you're
right, that's a
chasing.
good
If you
point.
see red and you sell,
All right.
what did you just do? You sold at the low.
All right.
And then you go buy when it's green, when it comes back up. Wait a
Right.
minute, that's not what we do.
All right. So I think a lot of times stocks do look attractive, especially like I said, you hear someone else's success story, but um, taking it from someone who's been working with finances for a long period of time, there's especially as a beginning level, there's probably wiser financial decisions to be made.
Yeah.
Um, than getting directly into stocks. But if it's something you really want to pursue, like you said, there's plenty of financial uh, information out there. But hopefully, as you're learning those things, there's other things again you can invest in.
Yeah, we wouldn't recommend that at all because, you know, there's too many people out there that are working against you.
Right.
Yeah,
That's just it.
they take advantage of you, the fact that you're not buying and selling at the right times.
Right.
And quite frankly, I didn't emphasize this up front, but I wanted to, you know, make sure that we understand that financial matters, you know, it's a matter of it's probably 25% math, you know, and arithmetic and all of that. It's 75% emotions, behavior, and discipline. Okay. So it has very little to do with the actual numbers. It's what you do. Okay. And if you get all upset because your investment went down by 15%, you know, and you still have 15 years until you're going to retire, I say, you know, just hold off. We created a plan, we set you in motion on it. Has anything changed to change that plan? No. Okay, then really what you should be doing is buying more. When it's at a low, you should be buying more. That's very hard to do because you start thinking, you know.
Right. You're reacting instead of
You're being very emotional about it, and you have to just push it away, you know, and you know, just understand that that's the way the stock market works. Okay.
right.
Right.
Now these are good questions, though.
Yeah.
Thank
very
you for
good
asking.
question.
That's what we want to do. I've heard stories from friends too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, I have a client that invested in crypto and lost everything.
There's another one. Yeah.
And then he like closed out his account. So I go, JC, what are you doing? You know?
Right.
And I still haven't got him back yet, but you know, he's one of the few that did everything wrong. I'm sorry, but that's what happened. Yeah.
Right.
Now, when we talk about traditional financial institutions, we talk about banks, we talk about credit unions, and we talk about insurance companies. Those are the companies that we deal with where we give them our money. Like for a bank, we'll give them our money to put in a bank savings account. Okay. A bank savings account is where you put the money in there, and it's basically goes into a general fund. The bank then, they don't just have this in a safe somewhere or in a bag in the corner. They take your money and guess what they do is they invest it in the global economy, just like we're going to be teaching you to do. Okay. So what they do is they give you your 0.5% or your 0.1%, and then they reap all of the profits. Okay. So what we teach people to do is when you start funding your IRA or your 401k, we want to make sure that you're participating in the global economy. Now, this has nothing to do with, you know, how your situation right now. Okay. We could set up investments for as little as $50 a month. Okay. But if you're investing $50, you're really not going to be accumulating that much. But I just want to tell you that you don't need a lot of money to start the discipline and the behavior of investments. You just need to start developing that mindset that, I want to have way more money, in the future than I have right now. Okay. It doesn't mean you starve and you do your last $50 in there. It means that you develop that mindset that you're going to, do $50 now, and then maybe in a year you do 75, as the economy gets better. So that you can take the profits, and then what you do is you're paying basically a small fee. You're paying a small fee to the money managers, the investment house that's actually handling your investments. They'll take about 1% while you're bringing in about 9 or 10%. Okay. With the banks, you flip it over.
Right.
They take all your money because they've got the wherewithal to invest in the global economy. Okay.
But I think to kind of tie in with one of my questions and with what you're talking about, that I haven't mentioned yet. So, I have on here, what's the difference between a checking and savings account? So I know that's kind of changing gears a little bit.
Yeah, that's okay. We can go through that.
Checking, obviously that account's designed for money to come in and out quite frequently, where a savings account, usually the banks don't want you to touch that money. It's like once or twice a month at most.
Yeah, they don't want you to mess with it because they don't want the expense of having to maintain that. They want it all for themselves to go invest.
Right. So you could say they're going to take more risk, I suppose you could say. They're going to try harder to invest that money rather than your checking account. They kind of expect that to be a little bit more, it can go up and down from $0 to $1,000 in these days money terms very quickly as they're trying to pay all your expenses and make sure everyone's paid who needs to be paid, where your savings account is more long-term planning. You did have a picture on here where you had your emergency fund and your short-term savings and your long-term savings. But with your long-term savings, that's a different. That's technically I think for a simple person, you could say that's a savings account, like a mutual fund. That's a kind of a savings account, but there's different conditions of how you work with it. Like again, you're supposed to touch it even less. It's designed so you're not be able to touch it twice a month like a savings account would. It depends how long.
But you can
the account for.
But you can get it within 5 days if you want it. Okay.
Right.
Because if you have an emergency, a real emergency, that's terrible. You can go to your 401k, you can go to your retirement accounts and pull that money. Would I ever recommend that? Very seldom.
Right.
It would have to be a really bad emergency. But you know what? Stuff happens.
And the account's designed for there to be some sort of penalty if you take it out earlier than you're planning for in the first place.
Yeah, it's 10% and a 10% tax. So a total of 20%, you lose a fifth of your money. So 20 cents out of every dollar you lose. Okay. And that's not the way to go, but
right.
But again, life happens.
Correct.
And sometimes, you might need to do that.
That's better than putting on a credit card, right?
Yeah. Or just crawling, up in a corner,
And I do have on here another side topic. What's the difference between a debit card and a credit card? Well, do you want to answer that one?
Sure, why not? I don't, you know what? You're talking to a financial guy. I don't even have a debit card.
Oh, really?
Okay? A debit card comes directly out of your account. Okay. So it means that it's just like cash, except for the bank and the government knows everything you're doing. So.
Right. Also like checks, isn't it? Debit cards like checks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's money. You make a payment and it comes directly out of your account right away.
Right.
And a checking account is I mean, you have a debit card attached to your checking account.
Mhm.
But see, I'm more traditional. I'm older, so I still write checks. Okay. I don't know. Maybe
Right.
you don't write checks anymore.
Yeah, I'm learning, even with the church organization and trying to learn the stats of everything. Truth be told, I only write checks mostly for tithing. Um, so given to the church. There are a few other things I've learned. Taxes are often actually, um, with the way I have things set up, easier by check. Um, but but I, truth be told, I hardly use my debit card. But there are some things, the DMV has actually gotten pretty good. There are some organizations that are good saying, you know what, that debit cards seem to work better for everyone because there's usually less fees for everyone.
Yeah.
There's less fees for the person making the transaction, and there's less fees for the person receiving the transaction. Checking, I think, is even less fees, but I think so many people try to when writing a check. So many people try to manipulate the system that people just kind of give up
Yeah.
on checks. They're like, well, if you have the money, use a debit card, or if not, then a credit card.
Yeah.
It's kind of the
Well,
how
it's
people
a
expect.
cost savings for the
Right.
bank, and it's more modern, the whole thing.
Right.
A credit card, is different from a debit card because you're actually borrowing the money.
Mhm.
But the cool thing about it is you do have a grace period of around 30 days,
Right.
20, 30 days. And if you pay it off, you're good to go.
Right. You don't have any interest
Yeah.
on top of that.
Yeah, but there are a lot of businesses that, they don't want to pay the transaction fee because the
Right.
business is the one that incurs the cost of a credit card. When we buy something for $10 or $100, we put it on there, we get charged $100. Well, the credit card company has to pay, or the business has to pay their credit card companies $2 or $3, 2 to 3%.
Mhm.
Okay. And they're wise to that now, where they're just not going to do it.
Right.
And they'll actually, it's like at the gas station, they have the cash price and they have the credit price. Well, that's what that's all about.
Right.
So I'm giving them cash.
I know more restaurants more popular. What seems to be more popular with restaurants now is they actually charge the fee that they're getting charged
Yeah.
to run the credit card.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they cost them $4 it's 4% to run the credit card. Well, then they're going to charge you the 4% to run the credit card. So, and when I don't know, it's then you have to make another choice. You still want to run the card, or you want to run the debit card, or write a check, or just go to the bank yourself and come back with some cash.
Yeah, credit cards are, probably more emergency items right now, or just a convenience thing. If you're just buying something on the fly, then you just pay it off and everybody's happy.
Right.
The rule of 72. Has anybody heard of the rule of 72?
How many more minutes do you think you'll need?
Well,
I know we started late, so I'll give you that.
No, I could go on for another half hour, but I don't think we need to do that. So,
Okay.
um,
Just let me know. I know you're kind of not sure. Whatever you think is important, maybe try to wrap it up in 10 minutes.
yeah, we'll do that.
So if you think that's important, go ahead. If you
No,
wanna skip it.
I like this one. Okay.
Okay.
The rule of 72 just gives you an idea on how money grows. Okay. It's something that if you do a quick calculation, you can get an idea of the basic numbers of how your money grows, when you have a rate of return, a specific rate of return. And you'll see that the numbers like 9 or 10% are not just better than the bank rates at 1 or 2%. They are through the roof. Okay. Which is why the banks and credit unions and insurance companies don't want you to know it. Okay. Here we are. When you don't prioritize your saving, the high cost of waiting, okay, the high cost of waiting, $200 a month savings at 9% for 40 years. Okay. That's just a math problem. Don't worry about the numbers right now. It's just a math problem. You know, nobody's going to say you need to do $200 a month right now. Okay. But that's if you start at age 25 and at 65, you're going to have almost $1 million. Okay. It's, you know, it's again, it's math. You know, if somebody can do it, I say do it.
Right.
You know, you're going to be better off.
So,
Okay.
any young adults listening to this recording, this is a key
1, 2,
a key
3.
thing.
There you go. 4.
to note down. Yeah.
Okay, now if you just wait a year, let's just say you decided, you know what, I want to go on a week road trip around Northern California. I want to stay in a few hotels and I want to, you know, and it costs you $2,400, you know, and you just decided that I need to do this. I need to go on a vacation. So I'm not going to start doing this until I'm 26. Okay. That ends up being an $83,000 decision.
Hmm.
Okay. You don't invest $2,400 when you're 25. And at the tail end, it's minus $83,000. So that's how this stuff works against you. Okay. Now, here's another one. Wait 5 years. This is maybe a person or a couple wanted to buy a new car. So they decided to put down a hefty down payment to keep the payments low. And they decided we don't have to start, savings until we're 30. Well, guess what? That's a $350,000 car. Okay.
Right.
So you're kind of understanding that the earlier, the better. It doesn't matter how old you are. It just means that the earlier you start, the better off you're going to be.
Right. There's still hope if you're older. I know we have a few people in the crowd here.
Yeah, you can't, if you didn't know about any of this stuff for the last 30, 40 years, that's just the way it is. Okay. But you've got a chance now to start.
Right.
Okay.
And share with your loved ones too. I'm sure many of you
Well-
have families, like you said, you see a few generations here.
Yeah.
And you can set them up for success and goals to strive for. Yeah.
And then the last one is devastating. You don't start till you're 40, so you neglected to save $36,000. Well, that's like a $750,000 decision. So, like I said, it's not over till it's over.
Right.
So the sooner you can do it, better. So, who are people hurting if they wait? Well, obviously we're hurting ourselves.
Mhm.
Okay, here's about bad news about compounding going the other way. One-time purchase of $3,000 on a credit card, 18%. It's going to take at least 10 years to pay this off with interest charges of around $2,000. So that item's going to now cost you $5,000. Okay. These numbers are all, based on real examples because we have all the fine print on these, that tell the conditions. Okay. Debt stacking. This is a method for reducing your debt. You've got retail credit card number 1, card 2, car loan, credit card, 2 credit cards and a retail card, your mortgage of $1,200. If you were to pay those off on the regular schedule, it would take you 23 years to pay all that off, and you would be paying $200,000 in interest. Okay. Plan B would be to say, we're going to accelerate this debt. Okay. When I get done paying off retail card number 1, I'm no longer paying that $220, right? That makes sense? I pay it off. So instead of celebrating and buying something else or going out to dinner, I'm going to say, I'm already used to paying $2,700 a month. Now, this could be $2,700. It could be $272. It doesn't matter. Whatever your level of debt is that instead of celebrating and say, I've got an extra $220, I'm going to put that to the next debt. and I keep stacking this debt so that when I get all these consumer loans paid off, our mortgage, all of a sudden I'm paying $2,700 on a $1,200 mortgage. Okay, I know these numbers are getting a little deep here, but
Yeah.
basically what happens is you're going to be able to pay off all that debt in 9 years instead of 23. So that's 14 years sooner. Okay. Now you have no debt. You have an extra $2,700. What do you do with it?
Hmm.
Anybody have a guess? Celebrate?
You could, maybe for
What do
a month.
what do you think you should do with it? What do you think I'm going to say to do with it? What I'm going to recommend you do with it? I invested in your retirement plan, of course. Oh my goodness. And that ends up being, an extra $2.4 million. I guess I could have 2.4. Again, the numbers are the numbers, and it's whatever level we're at. So if it's not $2.4 million, maybe it's 500,000, or maybe it's 10 million. Who cares? The concept is sound.
Now, anything you want to wrap up with? I
Yeah,
think that was
yeah.
a good point to wrap
Yeah.
up with.
Actually, that is. We won't talk about the insurance because that can go a little bit more lengthy, and we'll just.
All right. And if you are interested in insurance options and the things that were mentioned here, so life insurance and mutual funds, a long-term savings plans,
Yeah.
you're the guy to talk to, correct?
I'm the guy.
You're the guy to talk to.
You can see it keeps going.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to do is stop on this one.
And I do hope to, you gave me a PDF of a booklet of
Yes.
these things. I'm wondering if we can possibly also get a PowerPoint, unless all this information is in the PowerPoint as well.
Let me see
have
if
that
I
available.
can. Let
Yeah.
me see if I can give you the PowerPoint.
But at least a booklet. There is
Yeah.
a booklet,
Now,
whether you're online or.
I ran out of the house and I forgot my stack, so I only have the 2 here.
All right.
And I also
And I forgot
have
the one I made
Spanish
myself.
language. Jesus, if you're more comfortable with Spanish, I have Spanish. If you want the English version, I get you the English version.
Anyone want a booklet now? I know I will be seeing you again.
Yeah.
So I could always come back next week with more if you're wanting more copies.
To give me your
Um,
name, phone, and email. That way
I heard one yes. Anyone else want one? You'll take one as well?
So I do live in Willows, and I moved here about 6 years ago, and really love it. And I love the heat. I was in the East Bay for a while, but I spent a lot of time in Ventura County down in LA area. And then I came up for a job, before I decided to retire, in the East Bay. And there's no way I was going to stay there. So, sorry. No. Yeah, Oakland and San Lorenzo and Hayward. Yeah. Yeah, could you I could send you some more information.
Um,
That's thinking my grandson here, how that works, because I don't know how it works for the vet, and how much you can make, as time goes on.
Yeah, time is on their side right now. There are minor accounts that you can set up, and then that becomes, their.
as there was I made a sample budget chart to work with. I know we talked a little bit about you want to list your expenses and your income. I put a sample together and you can look it over and hopefully you can kind of piece it out. Truth be told, even with in person on the screen, there's And even in print, I need my magnifying glass to read it. But if you have any questions about that, we can look at that too. I know one person talked about taxes. I think especially for young adults, how do you plan for taxes? For my experience on the younger side, at least, especially when I was going to school, I remember, you just a lot of times you can go on online and figure out your taxes because a lot of times you got money already withheld from your taxes. I know things have changed about the amount that's withheld over time, but a lot of times they try to make it where the amount withheld is the same, if not more, than what you'd be paying towards taxes by the time taxes come. So by the time taxes come, they you just have to fill out the paperwork online, and then usually whatever organization, TurboTax or whatever the IRS recommends, because you got federal tax and state tax. So you got those two forms mainly to fill out. And usually if you go, especially do an online guide, it'll just take you right through of what you need. But most people, as someone who's employed, they just they again, the amount that's withheld, they ended up calculating what your default tax is. A lot of times these fancy programs say, give us like $20 or $10 more, and we'll try to find those shortcuts for you to get more money back. But unless you got really some fancy going on, I've never found any money savings from that. And I kind of more lost $20.
Yeah.
There's a thing called a standard deductible, and it's actually pretty high. And
Yeah.
even with my faithful tithing, and even when my wife had a child and we had a high deductible, still the standard deduction for whatever I spent was better than me piecing out what money went where for a whole bunch of things. So unless you have a job that you need to list your expenses for, or how many miles you tracked, and or things like that, like you're running your own business, just the basic online form, of course, something credible like TurboTax. You just go out, fill the form, and as long as you got your W-2 and anything else that they ask on there, you just go through it and they'll square it away for you. If you have more questions about that, again, you feel free to contact us or a tax guy. A tax guy will be more than happy to help you. And if you're really clueless, sometimes after the first year, a lot of times, if your finances stay the same, you can just look and see what they did and just do the same thing on your own next year. So if you've seen just two forms, one for the state, one for the federal, and that's it, well, then that should be pretty straightforward. You can do on your own. If you start seeing 10 sheets of paper with all these Schedule C, W-10s and things, I don't know even what a W-10, I just know it's a whole bunch of letters showing up, and I'm like, I don't know what this, you own a house and you're renting it out, and that's which is kind of your own small business. I think a lot of times with taxes, I remember my own, I was doing some side work, and it's kind of like, well, I don't have a business license for that. How do you deal with the income from that? And what I kind of learned is when you're going through the tax information, by putting your name down, it's kind of like saying, I'm the business. So my name's Sylvan Finger. So I'm the business of Sylvan Finger, and this is what I have to show of how much I made this year. And so whatever money you make, that's what you took home to spend somewhere else, not back in your own business. So, if the cost is $20 a shirt to make and you sold it for $20, well, you didn't make anything. So overall, government's not going to care for that because you didn't make anything. But if you got, some side businesses you're making $1 million off of, and you're spending it on crazy parties for $1 million, crazy vacations, let's do it that way, that cost $1 million a year, well, they're going to want to care about that, because unless that vacation was a business expense, they're going to, governments want a portion of that tax and bring it home. So again, unless you just work for someone,
Keep it simple.
you just keep it simple and file tax and state, and you'll be okay. Even if you didn't make anything, a lot of times, if you made just a little bit, the government wants to know what you did and file for it. Again, I think that pretty much covers it for tonight. Any questions before we stop the recording? Of course, you can ask afterwards, but anything else? All right. Thank you for joining us for this financial class. Hopefully you learned something. Debt generally is bad. Paying off debt is better. Investing is best.
Yeah.
And to some sort of savings and making the money stay in your name instead of being spent in someone else's name. All right. Thank you and have a good night.